morning and welcome to Rose Red Homestead Micro Moment Monday, where today we're going to be talking about dehydrating apples, only this is going to be quite a short video because we're not going to do the whole process. I've done so many videos on dehydrating that I am assuming that you can pick up any information that you may need from some of those other ones. This one is going to be determining whether or not we want the finished product to be bendy and leathery, or whether we want to bite in and have it snap. So here is a bag of apples that I dehydrated in 2016. In 2016 we had a bumper crop. Our crop this year is probably the best ever, and so I'm scrambling to try to do everything with apples that I possibly can. So these apples I packaged in Ziploc bags, and because I had room in my freezer on the door, I stacked up these little baggies of these apples, and they have lasted obviously for years. This is now 7 years old. Now these apples, and I just took them out of the freezer a few minutes ago, these are the crispy kind. They snap, and when you bite into them, they're crunchy. They're not leathery, and actually, so good. The way that I prefer them is, actually I love them either way, but when they're leathery, they're just great, they're more chewy, and when they're crunchy, they just snap and just crunch. There are lots of ways to dehydrate apples. I, as you know, am very pragmatic in my approach to things. And so if I don't need to do a step, I will absolutely skip it. I have been dehydrating apples for probably 30 years. And I've developed a little system that has worked very well for me. And I've been doing it on several different, as I have worn out one dehydrator after another. I've used the same process for a number of dehydrators, and it seems to work just fine. So here is what we're going to do. First of all, I just picked these from the tree. And so I'm going to wash these apples. Then I'm going to use my apple parer corer peeler tool. And this is in our Amazon store. I love this. It peels them and cores them and slices them very uniform. Now, alternatively, you can leave the skin on. You can use your mandolin and set the thickness for a little bit thicker than these if you want. But I can be very efficient when I use this. And I will show you putting them in the dehydrator and setting the temperature and the time so that you'll have a better idea of what I do. I do so much just out of experience that sometimes I forget to say I dehydrate apples at such and such a temperature, and I set the timer for so long and so forth. I have done a few apples already. One apple I forgot to engage the peeler, so I'm going to have to do that by hand. But here is the apple parer corer peeler in action. Jim is going to get a close-up. This will only work if the apples are fairly crisp. If the apples are mushy, it won't work at all because it needs to have a bite and a tight tension on the apple in order to do this. So I just shove the apple onto this little fork, and I'm going to do it backwards for me so that you can see the action part. Now this is the corer, this round piece right here. As the apple goes through that way, it cores it. This is the peeler. This is the slicer. So you will hopefully be able to see the whole thing as we go forward. So I'm going to do this backwards, which seems strange to me, but I think you'll get a better view of how it's working. So it's doing the peeling. Now the corer is engaging. Core is going to come out this way in a moment. The slicer is working. And then it pops off when it has finished with the slicer. So I pull the apple this way, leaving the core behind. Then just disengage the mechanics here and pop that core off, and then I have the leavings. So what do we do with the leavings? Well, we can add them to our compost pile. I have made apple peeling jelly. We have a video on that, and oh, that was so good. And then we did a video last week on making vinegar, and you can certainly use these leavings for vinegar instead of the chunks of apple that I used. Now I'm going to show you what happens next. So I have all of these sliced apples. Some of these apples are wormy, and we can see some of that, and you also see them browning a little bit on the outside. A lot of people really rush to dunk their apples immediately into a solution to prevent them from browning. So I don't do that. To me, it makes the apples wetter, and I don't like that. Besides, this is how the apples turn out. These have not been dipped in anything, just exactly what I'm going to show you right now. So I don't think it's necessary to do that. But if you prefer a whiter finished outcome on your apples, then by all means do it. So I just take the apple, cut it in half, check to see if there are any worms, and then lay them out right here just like this. And like I said, you can certainly leave the skins on if you would like to. I've done that before and it does work just fine. I just prefer them without the skins. Also, a lot of people love to spice up their dehydrated apples. They'll sprinkle nutmeg or cinnamon or lots of different spices they use to make them a little more tasty. I love them the way they are. This tray is now ready to go right in the dehydrator, and I put them in the dehydrator immediately and turn the heat on so they can start while I'm finishing up. So let's walk over there and do that. So the stucco guys are working just on the other side of this door, and they've got their music blaring, so that may be what you might hear in the background. Here we go. I'm just going to start right here at the top. And when we had this cabinet built, I had them build me a pull-out shelf, and there's a plug-in back there so that I can keep my dehydrator right here behind closed doors, except when I use it. So I'm just going to keep the door closed. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on and let it run that way, and we'll adjust down to the working time and temperature when we get everything in there. So I'm going to head back over there and finish filling up trays, and when I get all done, we'll be back. Here is the last tray going in, and you can see by the timer that it's taken about 20 minutes to get all this done. So in we go. A lot of people ask, well, how long and what temperature? And a lot of people think, some people think that that's critically important to get exactly the right temperature, as if we were baking biscuits or something like that. And for dehydrating, it just really is not. It's a lot more arbitrary, and you can figure out what works out best for you. What I have figured out when I do apples is that I'm going to reduce the time. Okay, so now it's blinking and I can adjust it. Because I want to test these as we go, I'm going to give it 6 hours, and then we're going to come back and check. And for the temperature, which is now blinking, I'm going to put it down, and it has presets. So I'm going to put it at 140, and that is a preset. I can't do it by minutes, and so 140 is about right. So we're going to go for 140 for 6 hours, then we're going to come back and check to see if they are leathery or crispy, and see if they're even done at all. Our 6 hours are up, and I brought a couple of trays over. This one is from the top part of the dehydrator. This one is from the bottom part of the dehydrator. And that's as brown as they get, and to me this color is just perfectly fine. Now after 6 hours, some are done in terms of, and I have let these cool for about 15 minutes. You can't really tell how done they are until they have cooled down some. And so these are cool enough that I know that this one is very leathery, and this one is much cooler than these. And as I touch it, I can tell that it's still raw in the middle. It's cooler, because it cools faster if there's still stuff on the middle that isn't done. On the other hand, this one, I just feel the leathery stuff all the way through. Now this is one of the top trays. Down here, This one cracked, but it's still not as brittle as I'd like them to be. And, oh, here's one that is cooler. It also, I can tell, if I pinch, I can almost move the top versus the bottom in opposite directions. Not quite, but almost. Whereas this one, I can't do that at all, and this one is very leathery. So I have a variety of doneness through all of these. Because I'm going for the real crunchy, what I could do if I were going for the leathery ones, I could go through piece by piece and pull these off now, the ones that are done, and leave the ones that aren't done, and let them cook more. But I'm not going to do that because I want all of them to be nice and crispy. I'm going to set the timer for 4 more hours. It'll go into the night, it will turn off, and then in the morning we'll come back and check to see how everything is. And I'll show you how I am going to then bag them up, only I think I'm going to put them in jars and vacuum seal. So I'm going to put these back, set it for 4 hours, same temperature, 140, and then we'll reconvene in the morning. I am filling up the last jar with the last tray. They turned out perfectly, but here's what I had to do. The 4 hours that I added yesterday finished after midnight, and so the dehydrator just turned off and they sat for several hours. This morning when I checked them, they were still not quite done. So I gave them another 2 hours, and now they are done perfectly. Oh, nice crunch. I love them that way. So 12 hours altogether at 140. But know that just because that's what worked for me this time isn't what might work for me next time. With dehydrating, you have to be flexible. You have to test the food as you go. You can experiment with time and temperature, taste as you go, let the fruit or the vegetables cool off a little bit before you actually test for dryness. Otherwise, you may get a false positive. So it looks like I'm going to have a few left. Oh goodness, I might have to eat them as snacks today. And then instead of putting them in Ziploc bags like I did back in 2016, I'm putting them in these quart jars. And I'm just going to, and these are previously used lids. This one says ghee. This one says ghee. This one says applesauce 2016, so it was part of the bumper crop of apples. And then I'm just going to use my battery-operated vacuum sealer and seal these. This is the handiest gadget sent to us by one of our viewers. I have a video on it. It's also in our Amazon store now. These will keep for a long, long time. And with them packed this way, I can open up a quart jar, bring it in the house, and then just if we're going to be going on a road trip or whatever, I can pour some of these into a little baggie and have my portable snacks, whatever I need, and then re-vacuum seal these and put them back out on the shelf. So, very perfectly done. So these are all vacuum sealed and preserved and ready to go. So this was a quick little video on dehydrating apples, whether you want them chewy or whether you want them crunchy like I do. I hope this was helpful. So thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. If you do subscribe, hit the bell so that you will be notified every time we post a new video. And thank you for sharing what we do with others as well. That helps our channel grow. It helps the knowledge get out there to more and more people. So thank you so much, and we'll see you very soon with another video, and next Monday with another micro moment.